Welcome back to the Modcast YouTube channel. Today, something even more niche than what I drive, the Chevy Sonic with the 1.4 turbo. Can't talk today. Got some new parts, some old parts that have to go back in because the old radiator decided to completely die and leak out of both ends, but ZZP is awesome with their customer service, and they got my cameraman his radiator back within what, like a week?
Yeah,
week and a half?
ish. Yeah, something like that.
Roughly. They were going to repair the other one, but they felt that it would just be better to send them a new one. So here we are, and we're going to also install this spacer plate here, which allows the installation of a oil catch can. So there's a bit of a block off for the PCV and all the hoses necessary. They've got some digital instructions on their website when you click on the part. It is much easier to view on a laptop, so I would recommend doing that. But it says it should take about an hour and a half, and it's relatively easy install. So we'll bring you some updates as we move along. As part of the directions, it's actually the first direction to remove the fuel rail. You need a fuel line disconnect tool. I got this set on Amazon. I think it was literally like $20. It's got a bunch of different disconnect tools in it. I modified this one to fit Goobaroo when we did the clutch in that car, but I've already done it, so I know this is the right size. This little plastic one will work. Quick pause. Got to take that off and put it back on before you start it. My coworker started using a sledgehammer, so you put the tool around the fuel rail portion, and then you push down on the fuel line as you push that tool up inside, and it's supposed to release the fins that are in there all the way around. Took me a little while to get it off of there, so I'm gonna skip ahead to the part where it pops off.
Good.
I know. There it goes.
There it
okay,
is.
so this has to be seated all the way up to the little bevel here, and this should pop off. It might fight you a little bit, so just kind of turn it to get all these little fins in here pushed in. You can see there's 4 of them. And then your fuel rail is disconnected from the main fuel line. All right, so these little injector harness plugs, super easy. You just push in on these if you've never done this before and pull it off. So I got this big pick I'm using. Just pops right off. Simple enough. Now the fuel rail is isolated, and in theory, as according to the directions, we should be able to take these Torx bits screws out and pull the fuel rail and the injectors as one piece. So we've got these are Torx T30 screws. I don't believe they're the original ones. We got those out though, and everything's moving, so yep, pop it all out just like that. In their directions, they do note that you don't have to do this process, but they say it makes it much easier, and I would agree, it probably makes it much easier.
Go.
This little line that goes, what did you say it went to? Your
It's a recirculation.
Oh, the recirculation valve. Okay, so it's unhooked down here, but I'm getting it out of the way. So there's a tiny little nipple down there that it has to go back on, so we can't forget that.
Yes.
These intake manifold bolts loosened. I'm just going to take them out. And there it is. Just have to disconnect some stuff off the back to make it sit a little farther back, because these heater core hoses are sort of in the way. But once we get those all disconnected and get this moved, we'll come back. So pulling all the old bolts out of the manifold, I've got these little rubber stoppers on all of them, which is a nice thing that GM does. They will be replaced by longer bolts, which from all we can gather is these ones right here. So we're going to try and see if we can reuse the rubber stoppers so that it's kind of OEM when we go back together, and they don't like to fall out and go all over the place. But we do have to swap over that one little ground. This is what the wire looks like. So one of those
So these buffoons forgot the washers in that bag right there, so do yourself a favor, don't forget them.
Yeah, looks like they'll fit, so I don't see why it wouldn't work. Ooh. So when we put it back in, they shouldn't just fall back out. All right, so I didn't see this in the directions, maybe haven't read far enough ahead yet, but this car is 250,000 miles of New England torture. So
294.
294, sorry, that was low.
Yeah, you were low.
Very low.
We got this brand new too.
Stitch. So it's kind of crusty and dirty and gross back here. So I'm just gonna take some Scotch-Brite, bam, and just clean up the surface for the new gasket on the spacer plate. Just hit it with some Scotch-Brite where the actual seal goes, and wiped it down. So brake clean, sucked out any of the from the ports that may have fallen in there in the process of taking this all apart. Now we're going to clean up this gasket because unfortunately we don't have a new one. Just kind of try to condition it with some new engine oil once it's clean. And then that little tab right there in the PCV valley, as they call it, looks like this one's actually more so on top. In the picture they show, it shows it down on the bottom of that little rectangular area right there. But anyway, you're supposed to trim that off of there, so we're gonna try to do that as well, and then we'll put the plate in. So we are well on our way here. The torque spec on this is 15 foot-pounds. Make sure you put the washers on these. I installed this once without the washers and then realized that there were washers that went with it. So just put all the washers in. And
It'll be catastrophic if you don't. It'll separate from the block.
yep. And then no boost, no nothing.
Yeah.
So there you go. So fuel rail stuff is all back together. Install in reverse order of taking apart. Definitely grab some engine oil and just put it on the seals for your injectors when you go to put the fuel rail back in, if you choose to do it that way. So that's kind of where we're at. We put this little machined piece. This one's black in the directions. It shows it being silver, probably so it's easier to see. But they point it that way. And then this second hose, which has a built-in check valve, hooks up to that. And there's various size hose clamps. This is the smallest one, so that more than likely goes to this one. I'm gonna double check before we go ahead and start tightening things down. But as far as I can tell, according to the instructions, this runs right down on top of the other hose that goes to the sandwich plate that we use to block off the PCV to install this catch can. So it's pretty simple routing here. Not much is really in the way. Obviously we have ZZP intercooler piping here, so this plug is a bit of a menace when you're trying to get to that specifically, but certainly doable. So
Just pull the charge pipe off and you'll be fine.
yep. Another hose that replaces this factory one. Oh, I should mention, when you put this on, it does say in the directions, but that, as I call the Jesus clip, is when they fly off, you say, Jesus! You take it off of this OEM hose here, it just goes in the little slot, put it on there, pop it on, you're good to go. This, I believe, might also have one, or no, this one's just like a regular style clamp. So take that off of there, and then the other hose, I think, just slides on with a hose clamp, so we should be pretty good for installation. The final hose doesn't just go onto the turbo inlet with a hose clamp. You actually have to transfer this piece to the hose, which they don't show you any pictures, so I'm going to show you how I did it because it's super easy. Heat gun, put it on the low setting, warm this area up, and then as you can see, I just cut it ever so shallow with a razor blade. Be careful when you use a razor blade. I don't know if I have to tell you that, but you should be careful. And then pops right out. So yeah, we're gonna stick that in and put a hose clamp on it, and then this goes back on the inlet. Pretty sweet. careful when you're tightening this. Pretty obvious to say, but this is plastic, so you could easily crush it with one of these. We got the cap installed. It's a bit tough to get in there the first time because you are going into a plastic valve cover, and it is a machined metal piece, but it's really nice quality. Once you get it popped down in, I'd recommend just turning it into place. Get this loose before you do it so you don't break the valve cover. So get this loose, get this in, get it turned the quarter turn so it's tight, and then line this up so that when you tighten it, it's pointing straight. I used some of these to do that. They don't mar anything, they've got no teeth. So I usually use them for alignments and stuff so I don't ruin tie rods, but works really good for stuff like that. It's all in. We got that hooked up as we said. This is all good, everything's tight. All of these little hose clamps are tight. So the one that has the check valve in it runs to the inside, and the one that goes to the spacer plate with the block off goes on the outside. This little number right here looks like a dial of some kind. That is your dipstick. So you can unscrew it. See how full it is. Obviously there's nothing in this one, but yeah, that's a cool little feature that they put on top. I don't know how many other companies do this, because actually this is the first catch can setup I've installed on anything so far. So yeah, pretty simple. Definitely need some tools to get it done. Careful when you unhook that because there will be fuel pressure in there. But yeah, so we're gonna reassemble the rest of the car because we still have a shiny new radiator and the big front mount that was already on there to put back in. And hopefully this will roll out the door sounding mint. Go. So we skipped a lot of stuff, but pretty self-explanatory. Obviously they have all their instructions on their website, ZZP. New radiators in. Got the front mount intercooler in with all the charge piping where it's supposed to be. Air box is in. The stock coolant reservoir is back in. Everything's buttoned up nicely. We did struggle with the radiator fan a little bit. Not sure if something maybe was welded off to the side just a little bit. These are handmade, so I can't really blame them. So we just modified the fan shroud by oblonging the hole just a bit, and if you use a washer, it's not going to go anywhere with a good bolt. So we're actually going to give it a shot and start it up and see how it goes. So there we have it. Catch can setup on a 1.4 Turbosonic. Definitely not as hard as I thought it would be. So thanks to them for their directions, because those were super clutch. Obviously having a lift in here and having done this every day for a living helps too. But yeah, it's running well. Probably heard the squeak. Made it pretty obvious we haven't put the belt on yet. We're gonna get a tensioner. It looks like you have to take the motor mount out of this car to do the belt. So we're gonna save that for another night because it's getting late. So yeah, if you'll toss us a like and comment down below, see what you think of this. If you want to see some more of it, there'll be plenty to come. So thanks for watching.